Hello everyone, this is Evan from BlazikenTCG, and today guys, I'm going to be doing another matchup guide, this time for Lugia and Giratina. This one was actually requested to me by a viewer, so we're going to be going over the Lugia and Giratina deck, and I'll be going over the different matchups. So this is pretty much just a basic Giratina list right here. You could swap out the Pokegears for vacuums, or you could put in cross switchers. I think this build is pretty perfect though. I think that this is a really good build, to be honest. I've never been a huge fan of the cross switchers in this deck. I think it's just more consistent without them. But yeah, the main goal of this deck is to just get cards in the lost zone and start charging up your attackers that need cards in the lost zone to work, like Cramorant, Sableye, and Giratina. Giratina has two very powerful attacks. You can either do 280 with Lost Impact, or just use Star Requiem, which as long as you have 10 in the Lost Zone, your opponent's active Pokemon is automatically knocked out. So let's go ahead and start off with the Turbo Lost Box deck. Now this is probably going to be one of your harder matchups. You can definitely beat the Turbo Lost Box, but it's going to be one of your harder matchups. And that's because, so in this matchup you obviously just can't use the 2-prizers, so that's just 6 dead cards in your deck. That's, yeah, just 6 dead cards that you just can't use. So at that point, your only attackers are going to be like Cramorant and Sableye, maybe Greninja in some situations, but most of the time they're just going to be throwing Manaphy down right off the bat. So your best bet in this matchup is just try and get Sableye before them. That's one of the reasons I kind of like vacuums more than Pokegears. But just try and get Sableye before them. Vacuums obviously do help speed up the process. And then in the late game, just try and win them over with Disruption. A lot of times you can win just because you Roxanne or Iono them into a really bad hand and they can't recover from that. But until then, you just want to try and get Sableye before them. And then if you can't, then Disruption is your next best option. Then we have the Gardevoir deck. Now, I think Giratina is very favorable into the Gardevoir deck. So you want to just try and get Sableyes in play faster than them, and start shredding through their routes and Kirlias before they can evolve them. At some point, you're going to want to take a Gust KO on the Gardevoir EX with Star Requiem, and some people even play the Cleansing Gloves in here. This list does not have them, but some people do play the Cleansing Gloves, just so you can also knock out Gardevoir EX with Lost Impact. If you are playing Cleansing Gloves, that helps a lot in this matchup. Otherwise, you can try and set up a Lost Impact Sableye play at some point during the game. So this matchup is kind of 50-50. You might struggle with it at times. If they can just get set up faster than you, then it might be a struggle. But just get Sableye in play. Also, if you're going second, you absolutely have to use Spit Innocently turn 1, otherwise you're just going to be way too far behind to be able to compete with Gardevoir. So if you're going second, Spit turn 1. You obviously want to go first though, so you can try and get Sableye faster than them. Then we have Arctina Umbreon, which one of the main reasons that Lugia and Giratina has been popping up a lot in online tourneys is because it has a very favorable matchup to any Arceus deck. So with this deck, you obviously can just use Star Requiem to take 3 prizes at some point in the game, which is really, really good. And then Lost Impact already knocks out an Arceus VSTAR. If you're playing belts, which some lists are, some lists aren't, then you can also knock out Umbreon VMAX with Lost Impact. But yeah, pretty much just, I'd say you can either go like 2-3-3, 2-3-2, or you can just knock out 2 VMAX Pokemon. The 2 VMAX Pokemon is probably the most efficient way, so you can just knock out one with Star Requiem, and then try and set up a Sableye play, so then you can use Lost Impact on another one. Against Lugia, Single Strike Lugia, so this deck is probably one of your tougher matchups, but luckily Single Strike Lugia has kind of fallen off a bit. It just has such a bad matchup to Gardevoir, and even like Lost Box isn't an incredibly good matchup, but in this matchup you want to just try and get Giratina in play very early on. Sableye can also be good in this matchup at times, although Sableye a lot of times isn't going to be incredibly helpful in this matchup just because all their Pokemon have more than 120 HP. But this is probably one of your tougher matchups. Like, it's a very bad matchup if the Lugia player is good with that matchup. But, yeah, Tyranitar is very tough for the Giratina deck. But just try and knock out a Lugia at some point. If they have to put down Lumineon, that's good for you because that's a free 2 prizes whenever you want it. And then Tyranitar V, you also want to knock out one of those as well. So normally you're just going to go 2-2-2 in this line. Or you could try and go like 2-2-1-1 if you want. If they're not playing the Radiant Serena, which some lists are cutting the Serena, then you can go Moonlight Shuriken with Greninja on both Archeops, and then the next turn you can use Lost Mine to knock out both Archeops at once. That is another line of play available to you in this matchup, but a lot of them are playing the Radiant Serena, so if they are, you will be just a bit short of that. Fusion Mew is probably a fairly favorable matchup, I'd say. So you have Spiritomb, so obviously just throw that down as soon as you possibly can and try and just lock them out of their Genesect. And then this is another matchup where Cleansing Gloves really helps a lot. So if you are playing the Cleansing Gloves, your prize map is very easy. Just 3-3. You can knock out a Mew VMAX with Lost Impact plus Cleansing Gloves or plus Choice Belt. Either one will work. And then the next one you can knock out with Star Requiem. So this is if you get set up, like the thing that Giratina struggles with is consistency sometimes. So if you just get set up, then this matchup should be fairly good for you. Then we have the Xian Pao Baxcalibur deck. Now, this is possibly a tricky matchup at times because they can just one-shot your Giratina. However, you're also one-shotting their Xian Paos, and you have Sableye, so I think this is probably favorable. So if you get Sableyes before they get the Baxcaliburs in play, then just start knocking out the Frigibaxes and making it very tough for them to actually get Baxcalibur in play. This is another matchup where Vacuum helps a ton. If you're not, then your next best bet is probably just going to be go 2-2-2 or 2-2-1-1. So just knock out the Xian Paos every time they bring them up, and then a lot of times you're going to close out the game by Gust KOing either an Arceus V-Star or a Lumineon V, depending on if they have to put down the Lumineon V. If they do put down the Lumineon V, sometimes in this matchup I even find myself knocking out the Lumineon V, then closing out the game with Arceus. But, yeah, this is another matchup that I haven't really tested a whole lot, but seems to be pretty okay. And then we have Arctina, which I think this is kind of like the only Arceus deck that can compete with Lostina. A lot of times Judge Path or Iono Path can be very, very bad for Lostina. However, you are a little more resilient to Iono and Judge because you have like Jet Energy and Abyss Seeking and Chorus and whatnot. But I think that Lostina is a bit more resilient to Hand Disruption than regular Lost Box, but Hand Disruption is still pretty good. So a lot of times Judge Path and Iono Path are going to be their main win cons in the late game. But yeah, this is probably like the only Arceus deck that can even compete with Giratina. But to beat this matchup, you kind of just have to Lost Impact. You're almost always going to be going 2-2-2 in this matchup. You can just Lost Impact 2 of their V-Stars, then finish off the game with your V-Star power. And then our last matchup is going to be Inteleon Urshifu. Now this is a matchup that I think is very, very good. So Inteleon Urshifu has been very famous for just always destroying the Lost Zone decks, but I think Giratina actually does have a good chance against Inteleon Urshifu if you can get the Giratinas in play. Because once you get Giratinas in play, they have no way to one-shot you, but you're one-shotting their VMAXs. So, you know, I think that if you just get the Giratinas in play, you should be fine. Normally you're going to knock out either an Inteleon or an Urshifu with your V-Star to just instantly knock them out, and then you're going to finish the game by going with Lost Impact and then Sableye to close out that game. Sometimes they do play Cheryl, so that's something else to kind of keep in mind. But yeah, I think this is a pretty favorable matchup. Just another thing you can do is just get 2 Tinas in play, or even 3 at times. Then you don't have to worry about the Sableye. You don't have to worry about getting Sableye in play. Cheryl can sometimes be annoying because they can just heal off the damage with Sableye. But there you have it, guys. That is the Giratina Lost Zone box matchup guide. If you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate it if you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It would mean a lot to me. And yeah, until next time, I'll see you.